The rabbit has a hostage of methods associated with what Snowden has reported from Russia. Illegal tapes put through Jaime Carbonell's purposeful mistranslation system and so on. Illegal tapes. But the rabbit misconcorkscrews them by using his antenna, his imperial antenna, which connects him to the Shimish of Gurdjieff, making him thus infallible. And he gets these things from Brian Eno, enunciated by Jaime Carbonell's mistranslation system. Get the idea. And the rabbit refuses to admit that it has the archetype of Gail Burstyn, the author of the script on the cover of God Save the Queen, under heavy manners. So the tangless nebulousness of his authoritarian disposition, working with Attica State Prison psychiatrists and so on, is largely unanswerable. I'll give you an idea of the environment this is. Shelley Friedman, the magistrate in Allegheny County, is who introduced me to Gail Burstyn. She said, "Hi, remember me?" I had never seen her before. I knew a lot of people from the Jewish Community Center. I figured I'd cross paths with her or something. Um, Shelley Friedman's daughters, Sharon and Michelle, called me up very whispery after tinkling little bells at me, wondering why I couldn't hear them. Um, and they told me that a black man had held them at knife point and done something that is illegal to testify about in state secrecy concerning children without their permission. And of course, they were probing my identification. Who would I imagine? There's a kid named James who was around a lot. Told me to take off my glasses in the park the way Oliver Stone told a boy in El Salvador to take his movie before shooting him. This was the type of kid who would really scare the devil out of me. In fact, when Chris Carden came around to ask me if there was anybody I wanted to know about, he came to the upstage. I asked him what had become of James. Evan Nauer said that I was talking about people everybody knew, that they all saw the same faces. Did they indeed? Did Evan Nauer see no on page? Did he complain when their arms were burned gangrenous with a poker from the fireplace in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood? I doubt it. He certainly didn't complain when a nerve agent was used on me by his buddies. He didn't complain about illegal tapes going through a mission central of denazificators built by Jaime Carbonell. This is a very special, particular Pittsburgh belief. Truth is relative in Pittsburgh. They have something called the relative truth. A newspaper at Carnegie Mellon University for a while. Back when Herbert Simon was doing machine intelligence. Machines can't tell Y2 from K. You can't tell Ronnie Zinsky from Shoes. And they murder senior faculty for the tag team. in neurobehavioral research who implants nerve agents that lead to Parkinson's through subsequent experimentation based on whispers. So, what I'm saying is, I have no way of verifying whether it was a tall tale I was told. But as a child, I was asked to believe it. And the Whisper campaign, Matt Marcus called his gang Whisper. The Shants, of course, because they knew about the neuroplasm. It was the sort of stuff that they'd call somebody up on the phone. I used to get these phone calls, party line phone calls. We know who you are and we saw what you did. What did I do? I reflected on the Pope and said, look, I'll buy you a car if you stop stealing. Karen Lovett was the woman who sort of, she worked at Howard Johnson's where Fripp was staying, and she told him that me and Leslie couldn't get into the concert. So he came over to our table and asked us if we would walk with him, and he would try to get us in. Seemed like a nice enough person at the time. I came very close to asking him why is Gail Burstyn on the cover of their album. I decided to take it in stride and think about it and try to pose the question. I had traumatic amnesia. A lot of things that happened to me I didn't understand because I couldn't remember them from beatings and the hallucinations and the gases and the crying shame of it all. They'd impacted a death charge. Gail Burstyn was Eurasian, and she was with the Soviet jury, but she was working with Milton Schaap and Hitler Reagan. It was an authoritarian rampage. Soldiers of fortune, queuing at the, big fort. And Dee Dee was like the Italian woman in that military album, Magical Mystery Tour. These men are goblins. The sort of thing that they did in Westminster, Pittsburgh, still hasn't run its course. People still haven't apologized to me, even though I was the only person who snitched on Shulman, snitched on Brecker. They have a storyline of Access Hollywood. And when they say put your money where your mouth is, what they're saying is don't feed yourself, but rather give your money to their poison victims who have turned on you. Gail burst in means just what it says. They incited the victims on their victims. It's a victim on victim festival. And the reason I'm not gig with it is that I'm an old man who's been tortured. But even more interestingly, I tried to save these people's lives, but giving them information and timely warning. They wouldn't have it. Sound Mental Health, Sound Seattle Art Museum, the Licky Chops people, the Clint Eastwood guys. They wanted a hushy stake in a lottery decree. They still do. They're working with the people who committed the attacks to make money and saying, who cares about anything? Who cares about anything at all? prove you're different. And they meditated it all along. It's a system of political ideas that discount the individual. That's why they didn't save lives. They didn't save lives because it would have meant that the individual meant something, and they couldn't have that. Critical race theory is a form of applied schizophrenia. They have this love hate relationship with their own themes of fairness. It's a relative truth to them, fairness. I'm sympathetic to dreamers. I mean, the idea of an international amnesty so people could drop the grudges that are mostly mercenary and work together on saving the planet seems pretty good, provided that our history is accurate and that we're careful with people who need to be careful with. Who you need to be careful with. So Biden talks about $400,000 people who don't get taxed under his fairness plan. I've never lived above the poverty line, $10,000, because of murderers who stand to this day with a knife at my throat, demanding everything I ever do. Stealing poetry. They say something about the content of the character. You're not judged by the color of your skin, you're judged by the content of your character. And then they steal poetry. Ain't that some? It's really very sad that they would do this. That they would live to see so many people suffer because of their hatred of the idea of individuality being meaningful. You can't warn what you automatically despise, right? I was trying to warn them. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to warn the people in Seattle and Pittsburgh who were at risk, and they wouldn't have it. They were too filled with hate. I was trying to protect them, and they rejected that in favor of doing this with slander and illegal tapes and all of the other things that they did to make me a laughing stock. Then they poison me in the mouth and say, put your money where your mouth is. They poisoned me in the mouth and then said that. One of these guys actually uses a Confederate flag. Speaking for Cornel West, this gang used Joseph Goebbels and got away with it. Goebbels Cornel West was so fetishized about the white intellectual and rival to the open mic, trying to help people who were at risk and warn them and protect them, that he sided with the white group who called Joseph Goebbels an honorary leader of the NAACP and the JDL, probably because money was involved. They called their Venus flytrap How to Catch a Predator. What was predatory about that? I'm trying to remember what Ray Geiger said when I asked him if he slept with the girl he was dating. He said that's what boyfriend and girlfriend did. So you want to say that every single person who sleeps with a girl that he's dating is a predator? That's a Venus flytrap, if you ask me. And yet, they continue to get away with it. They continue to snivel. Even 35, 40 years later, they emit the hiss of sniveling rather than own up to what really happened and what was really done. The Beatles are horrible people, absolutely horrible. And the person who put this all together pulled a Houdini. That Dracula, John Lennon, pulled a Houdini to avenge Adolf Hitler, who they called Casper. All of this stuff is normal for Yoko Ono. And Colombia, of course, worship Yoko Ono. So everybody who ever worships Columbia, from UW Dialectical to Shulman's gang on top at the University of Pittsburgh, Fernholder Bridge gang, also worship Yoko Ono. Even after she and her gang incite horrible terrorism, malicious hijacking and hotwiring of our national legacy, down to FDR and Eisenhower, cheering and laughing and sneering and gloating about the murders of JFK and Searcy. And none of you can make any sense. None of you can stop your wheedling, your sniveling, your lying. None of you can. It's extraordinarily sad. What happened at the University of Pittsburgh? I was working there. I took books over to Western Psychiatric. If they had a problem with me and Leslie Katz, her mother was giving me rides home. Her father worked at the business school. Why didn't they say, as a condition for staying here and working here, we would like you to see some therapy? I would have said, sure. I've always wondered why I was so shaken up by this thing. I didn't know about the burning neuroplasm that they'd implanted. But rather than follow protocol, which would be perfectly normal, they hired CMU Drama Club and murdered my father. That's administrative norm at the University of Pittsburgh. And to this hour, their NAACP is more interested in how to hawk the testimony of call girls who beset me, who chased me up trees trying to get away from them, who called me on the phone laughing. If a girl took off her pants for you, you wouldn't know what to do. You would go home, running home to your rich mama's shirt tail. Working for Neva Pornographic Corporation, the NAACP is more interested in hawking their soundtrack than owning up to their failure of administrative protocol. How hard would it have been? Jim, we know you're upset about Leslie. Let's see a psychiatrist 1 hour every couple of weeks as a condition for your employment. I would have said thank you. Instead, they call Penis Gabriel. He's going to prove what Uncle Sam really wants with Noam Chomsky.